Okay, hi everyone. Just if everyone could meet themselves would be really good. And we'll get started. So thank you for everyone coming. Just so we can, I'll just give you a bit of an order and format. We're going to be having a few things happening. So it's just different people looking to come in and actually get okay. Now someone is making noise just on their thing, so just got to find out who's got their noise up. Yeah, just so we'll definitely open it up for people to actually, speak a bit later on. I'll give you a bit of an agenda just so we can get this underway. Now I've just been having, yeah, Grace, I'll get you to host this actually, just because it has to admit people, so I have to keep getting distracted and admitting people. So I'll make you host. So yeah, you just got to keep an eye on that, Grace, because I didn't realize the way this is set up has to be admitted. So thank you for coming, everyone. To say I appreciate it is an understatement, because yeah, look, so we've got a really good group of people. Can I just check first and foremost, did everyone here come on Saturday, 2 days ago, or is there anyone who didn't come? Just so I get a bit of an idea. On the one we did 2 days ago, I've just shared about where we're coming from and all that. Yep, there. Yep, okay, great. So look, this is really, as we know, the whole stuff that's going on right now. And although they're talking about easing restrictions, as Aaron and I were talking about on Saturday, no question that just a big social experiment, and pretty much this is what we predicted. I said about a month ago, this was a big test. They would start winding things down very quickly before any social unrest happened. And then they would probably start clearing it up about May. By June, most of them will be gone. By July, they'll all be gone. That was pretty much my prediction. And I haven't budged from that one, apart from saying maybe travel. I predict there's going to be 3 phases of this. And if we don't move quickly, I think it's pretty obvious about microchipping and things like that is an inevitable outcome. So what I decided to do is, look, I've got a lot of knowledge and things that I've been doing. Yeah, look, Christine, I've actually been amazed at how accurate my prediction's been. I don't have any ego, because most of the time I think I've got to get this one wrong soon. And it's just, for whatever reason, I'm being given stuff and by higher masters, and obviously it's to help people and make a difference, because I really don't like the idea of Australia becoming the next China or England or New Zealand. And right now, I think that's the closest thing to inevitable as I could just about think right now. I mean, you've got this app coming out. Rob says the audio is unclear. Now, is anyone else having that problem? Yeah, Christine said it's shocking. Oh, look, it's disgraceful what's happening. It's just absolutely disgraceful. I just shake my head in astonishment. It's actually pretty blatant, and that's the thing that's got me quite sober, to be honest with you. And I'm very tough, and I'm very strong, and I'm very sober, because I'm like, the organization, the military efficiency that's happened in this whole thing says this is precisely planned, precisely organized. They know what they're doing. And like I said 2 nights ago, I mean, I had visions and was shown this 2 years ago and spoke this 18 months ago on the webinar and said all this would happen, and people thought I'd gone mad. But the speed in which it's happening, I must admit, has taken me by surprise. And when I've been tuning in and having some more visitations, 4 weeks ago, I had 3 nights in a row, I had angels turn up in my room. And by the 3rd night, I just thought, oh, shit. Because the things they were telling me, I thought, I don't like the look of this. And that, I think within 2 days, they went nuts with those lockdowns. So I pulled out all my stops, because I knew straight away they'd be pulling out some of his curses and things like that and what they were doing. And I moved fast in my region, really, really fast. And literally, we've hardly been affected where I am at all. And as Christine said, so a bit of housekeeping to get started. So really important to have order and focus. Absolutely have order and focus, because this is something that, the reason that basically the dark, and I've been told this by higher brotherhoods and councils, in all honesty, I've had my ear bitten off by them a number of times. And I don't mind that, because I bite other people's ears off. And now, of course, they don't, because, yeah, in all honesty, when I speak and I connect with higher brotherhoods and councils, right now we're getting on really well. But basically, the thing they cannot believe is what they said, the disorderly conduct that goes on here in all different levels. And they just said, you know, your planet, honestly, they said it deserves to, you know, you pretty much deserve what's going on. But there's just, but look, we want you to help people, Warren, you know. We really do want people to be given a fair choice, and that means everyone. So feel free to take screenshots. I'm going to give you very practical guidance tonight. Very, very practical, because believe me, you'll see what I mean. I've worked hours for this. I've actually put hours in the last 2 days. I put business stuff on hold with my other stuff because I really just want to get this out. And if even only 6 or 7 people tonight take action on this, we can make a very big difference. It only takes about 7 of these people doing what they're doing to make a difference. So it actually is very achievable, what I'm about to tell you. Very, very fucking achievable. The reason I chose this name is not because it's religious, but I'll share something with you I haven't shared to a lot of people. But I've been involved in underground movements and sovereign groups for years, and I've actually sat with ex-CIA guys, guys who know about mind control implants, guys who pull people out of Satanists. I've seen altered history books. I've seen hidden documents. I've seen hidden vaccination experiment proof where actually people died from them and they quickly erased the records. I've seen evidence of pedophile rings with my own eyes. Because I used to be a lawyer, people would come and give me this shit. And I must admit, back 14, 15 years ago, I was like, I don't want this stuff, you know. I'm just a normal guy. And yeah, I want to be awakened, but man, I don't want a fucking target on my life. That was honestly how I thought. And this, so I've seen all this kind of stuff, but I had a specific encounter about 18 months ago where I was told some very clear stuff and explained a mystery to me about history being altered. But to cut a long story short, the Dark Ages, many historians have not been able to work out how they suddenly ended very, very quickly. After about 700 years of absolute horrors and witch hunts by the church, and I'm curious if anyone else ever wondered how it just seemed to end, for about 800 years, they went on, witches were tortured, the church literally ruled the world with a totalitarian iron fist. It was a pretty horrific time when you study the history between 590 AD and around about 1500. And it was called the Dark Ages with a good reason. Now, it seemed to end suddenly over 50 years. Now, some say it just naturally evolved, but as we know, good people, bad people that suddenly wake up and think, oh shit, you know, maybe that I really should be a lot nicer to people. That doesn't happen as a rule. Maybe the odd one or two, but it takes action, it takes something to happen. And basically, there was a very radical change made to the history books. And I can't prove this, whereas most change of history books I can prove, but I was told it's a very specific download to fill something out, and I got extraordinary signs afterwards to confirm this was right. So, but basically there was actually a pope that went missing. So in the history books, the list of the Catholic popes, there actually was a pope who was erased from the history book. And the reason why was this pope completely cleaned a lot of the things up. When he got into power, he actually was a bit of a swindler, but he had a divine encounter, because overall he was a good man. And the result of that encounter was he actually cleaned up the Dark Ages, and he actually created a group called the Knights of the Holy Cross that went round hunting people who were involved in child sacrifice, torturing the women, and things like that, and gave them back the same treatment as they'd been given to them. And literally put terror into a lot of the dark, and it went underground. And although it took a long time for certain puppets to be routed out, there was actually a pope that came and literally came in such a spirit of purity, this changed the whole Dark Ages on its head. And the group he made was specifically called the Knights of the Holy Cross. So that's basically why I did that. So that's purely why. So it's amazing how much history has actually been changed. So background, the curses, why they are placed and how to break them. And then we'll be covering about ritual to follow, personal activation, and what to go from here. So why the name I've mentioned now, background. Okay, so like I said, I'm just going to give you a lot of information, and because it's going to be recorded, you'll have this available just so you can watch it again. So this is about taking some action from this, not just kind of doing a love and light kind of thing. I think it's what I want to make up front. I'm not that kind of a guy. There's heaps of them out there, around there, And if people are looking for that, by all means, you know, please go and find them. If you don't like the very militant style of the group, by all means, there's plenty of groups out there that aren't like this and won't run that kind of way. I just don't, I'm the kind of guy just not going to sit there and see governments come and do this in. You know, I read a quote from Porter Stainsbury, an investment guy, and I remember with Braveheart, I thought, look, I'd rather have a fucking bullet put straight through my head, but at least as I go into the afterlife, no, I fucking did my best and did something about it, and not say I was a coward. I mean, that's the one thing I would rather literally, you know, be shot dead, and I wouldn't have any hesitation saying that, and let this absolute nonsense go on. So I'd rather get up and speak this stuff, the truth, and just get it out there. So, like I said, that's my approach. I'm going to be very radical and extreme, and very, very extreme in what I'm saying. And because right now I do believe that extreme times require an extreme solution. So see it from the perspective of the dark. So one of the things that I've really done, and it helped with me, my background, if you don't know me, was I used to be a lawyer, you know, and I used to be a high-level tax planner, tax planning, but I used to be a lawyer, and I used to be involved in going against things and taking on different matters and all that kind of stuff. So I've always learned to think in terms of all perspectives. Now, for me, funnily enough, what's going on makes perfect sense. Even I'm surprised, because at the end of the day, let's say that you were completely dark and had no conscience and no soul, and you knew you could shut the planet down anytime you want, crash the stock markets, then get even richer and then enslave the fuck out of people, well, you would do it. And that's just the reality. As Thomas Jefferson said, if you don't stop people basically from doing this kind of stuff, they're going to keep doing it. So how do they benefit? Well, they're going to make a lot of money out of it. Probably they stick perverted fantasies and things like that. And as you'll learn a little bit today, so, and parts of history get erased. So for me, there's financial benefits. By forcing everyone to get vaccinated, just imagine if everyone in the world is forcibly vaccinated. I mean, whoever controls the vaccinations is going to make a fortune. If basically people's water and food is dependent on their government, well, they'll just do whatever their government tells them. So imagine if basically you knew you couldn't get food, you couldn't get water, you couldn't get in a plane, you can't get healthcare when you're in pain. Well, most people are going to go running and let them do whatever they want to do, whether it's a microchip or whatever. So it's a very slow, very clear indoctrination. And although there's a small number of people who will take a stand, like I'd say most of you here, the fact is you saw a lot of other people who want to do something about it, but are so afraid and so manipulated by the system. History doesn't change through lots of people as a rule standing up. It starts from a small group who moves something along, and then others get involved when they see leaders. People are looking for leaders. Right now, who's their leader? Scott Morrison gets up and gives a strong speech. Boris Johnson gets up. Someone gets up and gives an order and says, if you don't do this now, we're going to take away your right to the beach, just like an angry parent, and people go, oh shit, and they run. So it's going to take leadership from not just me, but from all of you, the people around you, to be strong and actually do something about it, and actually lead the people around you who are willing to listen. So the thing is, you've got to also look at what they do and why they would do that. Now, why would they tamper with the Bible? And this would be a 5-hour presentation if I cover all the proof. There's other stuff I can do and lead you to, but there's plenty of proof by experts that Bibles and sacred things have been tampered with throughout history. There's been many occasions where they were burned. The Vatican is well known to have a 12-mile library with all kinds of history in it. When they changed the Bible in 1975, the NIV, the translation committee was full of people who were deliberate dark Satanists and witches, and Dr. Rippinger in her thesis, and Dr. David Daniels, and Jonathan Gray, archaeologist, who we get to speak in 2 days, who proves the whole scientific cover-up. So we got him speaking on one of our other groups, but he proves a whole massive scientific cover-up and shows the real science, a real modern Indiana Jones badass. UFO covers up and everything. So the fact that they're so anxious to cover up history and cover up and tamper with Bibles and sacred writings and burn them tells you that these things are a problem to them. So people being spiritually empowered, having open pineal glands, that's why they've taken control of churches and they teach you dumbass stuff. Because if people start, because churches traditionally, when they've been empowered and speaking truth, have actually woken people up. You know, the churches you see today are just a bunch of absolute lunatics, and in all honesty, absolute idiots of the highest order. So, but no other sacred book has been so tampered with. Like, how ridiculous. The Muslim Quran, I think, has got one translation, and that's all it is pretty much. The Jewish Talmud, I mean, you could just like go through any sacred book. The Bible's got about 500 editions, and most of them are ridiculous. If you also study ancient history, like Persia, Babylon, Greece, Rome, and all the different collapses of empires, the first thing a new regime does is wipe out the history of the old regime. That's why, if you want my personal opinion is different to almost anyone else you see, I believe that we're actually seeing a regime change happen at the moment. I reckon that the reason that Prince Andrew suddenly got pulled off, Mr. Epstein ended up mysteriously dead in the prison cell, and all that other stuff is happening because there's actually been a regime change. I think there's been a secret takeover, and there's a much stronger, worse regime who's taken over from a previously kind of not very nice regime, but just self-serving, but ultimately left people alone, provided their money. Whereas this regime is much more brutal and probably more aligned with the China way of doing things. That's my prediction. But it's all been done in secret, so people don't realise what's going, because they want as much as possible to get as many people in on it before it's too late and they work out what's happened. So, for example, if you look at Encyclopedia Britannica in 1907 and compared to 1914, there's a whole missing group called the Khazarians. You just don't read about them. This is a lineage which there's various books like Arthur Kohler's 13th Tribe and various others that go through all this, but pretty much show that this deplorable race of people that have gone throughout and they've managed to change their names numerous times to integrate in the rest of society, but they're a group of savages. And many of them right now in Eastern Europe as Ashkenazi Jews and things like that. Now, keep in mind, there are genuine Hebrews and Jews and all that, so don't misunderstand me. I'm not suddenly going on some kind of weird tangent on that, but rest assured, there's some who are genuine and some who are very much not genuine, like everything, and they've kind of masked themselves, called themselves all kinds of names and got into the finance world. So it's amazing when you actually can read the real history and find out what's been taken out. So it's interesting too that the King James Bible was actually used by more enlightened churches, by occult and dark magicians. People who I know who've come out of it all say the same thing. Yep, they've used the incantation, the Freemasons Lodge, that's what sits on their desk, Druids, courts, you name it. In fact, there've been guys like Dr. Michael Pannon and others who, Ivan Pannon and another guy called the Bible Code actually shows it's a whole activation sequence which is so phenomenal it has to have been written by gods, was their exact words. These were secular guys. So Ivan Pannon, a Russian mathematician and geometry expert. So it's a powerful ascension activation code. So that's why many of these books are very hard to get hold of. The Keys of Enoch's one of my favorite at the moment. That I use, it's a very amazing book which goes through DNA, fire letter, and pineal activations. Fire letter, by the way, are what's called fragments of DNA to help raise your consciousness, open your third eye, get rid of the effect of fluoride and all that kind of stuff. So this is why I quote from the King James, not because I'm some kind of weird religious idiot, but the truth is, you won't meet a single person who controls world affairs who doesn't have some kind of priest or spiritual advisor. Most of them have basically got Satanists basically behind their ears running them. So very important to know that. So as soon as you kind of don't go from the spiritual perspective first, and that's how I've been able to deal with everything from tax audits to getting rid of that kind of stuff, and why I literally have zero fear of this whole thing. I'm more just interested in doing my path, and look, I'll be frank, I'm a little bit self-serving myself. I just want to do my path 100% and basically finish my time on this planet Earth and get out of here. That's my honest truth. I think it's a shitty planet overall, but I want to do my part, help the planet become a much better planet, do the best I can, and when my path is finished, go back in whatever way I go back. So the thing that Satanists do is they do everything in reverse to higher law. So the Satanic Bible, which Anton LaVey, for example, everything is in reverse. So that's the thing to realize. It's completely done in reverse. They tamper with etheric realms and body. They reverse NLP sequences that are meant to be good for humanity. And your 15 chakras, your 7 main ones and 8 morphogenetic and etheric field. I've got friends who do a lot of work in a etheric field. One of them's actually on here and she helps me. So hi, Kim. But there's other people I've worked with who basically do this kind of stuff and said you'd be amazed how much your etheric field gets tampered with by these masters and by all kinds of stuff. And these guys are expert. If you read Harry Hoxie's teaching, for example, in the 1930s, they were curing cancer using frequency realignments in the organs. He spent 18 years having to fight the various Food and Drug Administration until eventually they drove him out of America. And of course, now they're using 5G and other technology to do things on people's frequencies, because every organ's got a frequency. If you start tampering with the frequencies, you can actually tamper with people's etheric energy fields. You can literally drive them crazy and drive them completely nuts. So Stuart Swerdlow, an ex-CIA guy, and some of you here have heard of him, who talks about the mind control devices they can do and make people kind of have car accidents and things like that. And as I mentioned, when I was taken into the heavens and higher realms over many months and days and throughout Purus, about 400 of the buggers got taken out of me. The other thing I learned from people who've been in the occult, in the dark occult, is that they use these injections. And Grace, who's on here, she experienced that, but they basically come into your room, and if your energy field's open and you haven't learned to protect yourself and got unresolved stuff, they do an injection into you. And you wake up and you don't know what's happened, but as time goes on, you can get health issues, you can get all kinds of confusion in your mind, you're unable to actually hear things. I can remember this, having one of these myself put into me, and I couldn't understand it. I couldn't connect with music. Every time I'd get in the piano, I'd get anxiety attacks. I couldn't go near a piano, whereas I love piano. Once the injections were removed, I was able to get back into it again. So these things are, you know, I spend a lot of time getting these buggers pulled out of me and people who work closely with me. So believe you me, my mind is so clear right now. It's kind of, it's a weird feeling, a bit like you see what's going on and you got to think, how can I explain this to people in a simple way and get this through? And the truth is, I don't know if I can. I'm doing my best today. I'm sorry if I'm losing people, but yeah, right now I've just got to do my best and you can kind of watch over it. So they use these rituals and incantations on beaches. They use circles. They find the 7 highest place in a region and they go and they do their sacrifices to invoke the curses from the 7 high places. So they use this from basically they use blood sacrifices and various other things, and they invoke curses upon the region. And they get that from various books. They get that from the Bible and various other books which talk about the mountains and the high places. And one of the great sorcerers of the occult, a guy called Balam, who moved in incredible black magic back thousands of years ago and in fact controlled the whole realm of Egypt and various other, that literally, and he was the advisor to many priests and leaders. So blood sacrifice is very common. It's been a very important part of all kinds of cultures in history. It's been used to kind of atone to the gods or atone in some way. And basically, the dark is very aware of these blood sacrifices and the power of this blood and how this can actually be used to cause, basically, to invoke gods, release demon spirits, and release all kinds of their masters who work with them onto the planet to do things. So they use these blood sacrifice to be able to do this, and they're very aware of it. Now, as I said, these are the kind of things that obviously I know I'm hitting everyone with a lot of stuff right now, and those of you who really realize after the day that you're serious about getting it out of yourself as well as out of your community, no doubt will want to learn more about this. And believe you me, I'm happy to do it. It's just nice that I've actually got some people listening, and I'm surprised how many's on here. Because then again, what's going on, I think that people are very aware now that we've got a real problem. They used 5 witches and 2 warlocks to do the work, very specific. So 5 females, 2 men, and that goes back to some of the, you know, higher beings and things like that. So it goes back to these. So 5 witches, 2 warlocks to do the work. And yep, again, this goes back to various things that, again, I wouldn't have time to go into today. In the activation scroll of Ezekiel, he says they use a high place in every street. So pretty much you can go And in fact, when I learnt this, I remember going around and finding the highest places, and I was astonished. In our local area, even recently, I'd kind of forgotten about all this, and like I said, moved on from it because I went through some challenging times. But once I had my encounter with the Council of Nine and the angelic beings 2 years ago, I remember about 6 months later, I thought, gosh, I'm getting a lot of kind of cloudiness in my mind. And I thought, I've got to go back to these high places. So me and my sons went down, found the highest place in our area, and I couldn't believe it. We just found an obvious satanic altar had been built there. We went round to the local beach. We found about 2 or 3 of them everywhere. So I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then I managed to find another one, because overall things are very smooth in our area. But when these lockdowns first started happening, we did have one brief moment where something happened or looked like it was about to happen. So I just thought, okay. So I thought there has to be a place that we've missed. And so we got busy hunting and we found it. We found a park which was set up with a little bit of a memorial and a grove, which is a direct occultic sacrifice place. And they even had the pillars around there, which I knew they'd probably have 8 pillars there, which I knew there'd be 8 bodies buried. So straight away, I fixed it up. Literally, since I fixed it up, things have been smooth as smooth can be. We haven't even hardly had a policeman around where we are. We've just gone on with completely as normal, as if nothing's actually ever happened. So this stuff works, and this is why I'm doing this, to help you. And like I said, even if a small number do this, can go and do something in your community, you can make your life a heck of a lot better. We found this helped our finances as well. Like, you know, absolutely, you know, our finances are transformed. I found that buggers, they put blocks on, the last people they think they want is people like you and me being financially abundant, because controlling the finances is what controls the industry. Whoever controls businesses, controls the banks, controls the system, controls the food, controls the industry. And I couldn't understand why every bloody time, excuse the French, I started to make a lot of money and get really, really rich, I'd have weird things happen to me. And no doubt a few of you would probably have stories to share as well. But just weird things happening, like things would just stop and I would suddenly have a weird event and money would get lost from something that literally should have been impossible to have got lost. I mean, I'm a trained accountant, trained financial investment advisor, trained lawyer. I know finances and economics better than almost anyone. And once I learned about this little fucking trick, the law of karma, I realized that, okay, there must be karma, which I've attracted into my life, and I haven't dealt with karma in my area. So I had to do a lot of work around dealing with my karma. Once I did, then that changed things and money became a lot easier thing for me in my life. So the way the karmic law works is very simple. It's kind of like, think about the way that the law works right now. You know, like you go out and fight social distance rules, they give you a fine and you're stuck with it. And you can go and fight it if you want. So they're aware of it. They know the power of law and letters. That's why they own the law. That's why they've taken control of the law. Because they know whoever controls the law can make life very difficult for everyone else, or they can control what goes on. So basically, karmic law is the same. If you don't know karmic law, it doesn't actually matter. If you walked around in Victoria right now in New South Wales, and you went walking out in the middle of the street eating kebabs and went and lay on the beach in, say, Sydney Bondi, the fact you weren't aware of it doesn't make any difference. They'll probably fine you and say, well, because it says in the law, ignorance is no excuse. Now, basically, karmic law is the same. If, for example, let's say you come from Mars where there wasn't such a thing as gravity, and you actually were able to, for example, you know, hang around and float around the place and things like that, let's just say that, you know, gravity or whatever else, then it doesn't matter. If you walked off your roof, you probably would fall down and get injured. So karmic law, if you don't know it, so when you see this kind of shit going on, understand it's just karmic law playing out. So anyone caught in the karma is accountable, even if a minor, you know, even if it's a minor offense, like an accomplice to a crime. So those in the dark can read past lives 3 weeks in advance of you coming onto the planet. So they know if they have a right to curse or access your energy field. And Rebecca Brown, in her book, He Set the Captives Free, who worked with the highest witches and Satanist priests in America and helped one of them get out, they actually told her that as soon as people had their karmic life clean and they knew how to protect themselves, they couldn't get near them. But they had systems and ways to get in there. So now
one big karmic loophole, and there was basically this guy I've mentioned to you, Balam, tried to curse Israel and failed in Numbers 22. So what happened was he actually went to the 7 highest places in Israel, and if you go to Numbers 25, I'll just quickly show you the scroll. And like I said, I don't really have time to go into it so much, but so what they did was they hired this guy Balaam to put a curse on this particular group of people that was what's called Israel, or it was a higher seed, basically, people like us who are spiritual or whatever. So he basically said, curse these people, but they are too mighty for me, so I can get them out. In other words, put a curse on them, put a hex. So he did that. So basically he went up and they found the 7 highest hills and it wouldn't work. So somewhere here it talks about it. If you go here, yeah, so they went to the high places of Baal, and basically when you read it, they found 7 mountains so they could see the people. So they do it to get the highest spot so they can look over the region. So the way they do curses and spiritual rituals is very physical, not just spiritual. They're very strategic and they know what they're doing. And in fact, when you read Numbers 23, they weren't able to actually do it. They couldn't actually curse them because they were protected. So when you've got to go to extra other books like the book of Jasher, which is actually a reference book that was used to write parts of the Bible, which actually talks about the fact that in the end, Balaam said, well, you know, Balaam said, there's not much we can really do here. But he said, if you can get these guys to break their own laws and break their higher laws, then their own kind of gods or their own source or their own kind of those that they account to, they're going to get angry with them. So if we can get them to break karmic law, then we've got them, because then we can basically unleash things upon them. So basically there's 3 ways to circumvent, and John McAfee actually, when he talked about the patent from the 666, he specifically referred to this one. So this is a really important one, and one which I studied a lot of. It gave 3 very important dark masters. So woe to them, for they've gone in the way of Cain. And it's talking about these dark prophets and masters, these guys who deliberately do evil. And if you actually read Jude, it's very clear about people who deliberately go out of their way to hurt humanity and hurt people for their own ends. And he warns about them. He says they're very clever. They know how to get in and look that they want to view. And most of these guys are really good at it. So it says, woe to them. They've gone in the way of Cain. They've run greedily after the error of Balaam for reward, and they're punished and they perished in the rebellion or gainsaying of this guy Korah. Now, that's a whole different study in itself, but basically, the best way to think of them is Cain basically murdered his brother. Was the first guy of the supposed what's called Adamic seed on the earth, but actually murdered his brother. And any kind of unlawful murder breaks the 10 commandments. And in fact, you can actually read in Genesis what actually happened when this guy Cain did this. It invoked a curse upon the earth. So it was assumed straight away. As I said, John McAfee wrote a very interesting, quite a good article about this whole thing, about the 2 offerings of Cain and Abel, and how one just basically bought an offering from business that suited him, and the other one actually followed divine law. So it says he had no respect onto Cain's offering, but he did for Abel. And the reason why was Abel followed divine law. He actually used correct blood sacrifice, but done in a correct way. So using animals, which was the way at the time before things changed 2,000 years ago, basically, through various things. So basically, this guy Cain ignored the blood sacrifice thing. And in fact, he then went ahead and killed his brother. So look at these words here. And this is a very important words. The voice of your brother's blood cries from the ground. So it cries from the ground. In other words, it's a physical curse on the land, on the region. And now, because you are cursed from the earth, which has opened your mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it shall no longer give you strength. You'll be a fugitive and vagabond. So the moment there was blood, it brought this curse upon him and upon his descendants and upon his regions. Now, this is one of these things I'll openly admit to you. I had difficulties with this for years. I used to think, this is just fucking unfair. The thing that amazed me is once I started dealing with them, I could not believe how much my life changed. I could not believe it to this day. I had horrendous health issues, like I really did. And now I've got literally spectacular health. And I mean that. I was asthmatic as a boy. I had chronic fatigue, depression, RSI. I had so many sicknesses. It was almost a normal part of my life for most of my life, hay fever, you name it. And when I actually learnt this stuff and went through this, breaking this all down over quite a bit of time, mind you, I couldn't believe the difference. When I cleared my past life karma and did everything and went through all this, honestly, I didn't talk to people about it because I think most people will just think I'm completely gone off my head because I'm accountant, lawyer, planner. So it became more a private thing. It became more something which I did really for very small groups of friends or clients who I could see were very open mind. But I will tell you now, this transformed my life. So if even a few of you take on board and are keen to do this and, you know, learn to do this, my health transformed, my finances transformed. I seem to attract toxic relationships, you know, and difficulties in that area of my life. Don't have that at all. And like literally fear, everything just went out the door. Have a deep peace pretty much every day. And honestly, I can tell you that it was basically doing this once I worked this thing out. So like I said, I'm just basically sharing what happened. And I've seen that, and people in our group, some are on here today, will tell you the same thing has happened to them. So Balam was the next guy. So by the way, hate, and 1 John and the Gnostics also, because the Gnostics will take it very esoterically. If you energetically hate someone and mean it from your heart and wish they were dead, like just because, oh, I hate my ex, I just would love him to die, and you imagine him dying, you're actually engaging in occultic dark law without realizing it. You're actually doing the same thing. So you're now bringing a curse upon your family and upon you. So actually learning to master those thoughts and transform them is really important. Balam, go greedily after the error of Balam for profit. So basically this guy was a dark sorcerer for hire. Whoever paid him the most money, he'd work for them. He would go and do all kinds of horrendous things upon people and ruin societies because it profited him. I'm sure that sounds like today some of these Jesuit priests and some of these other guys you hear about. And so I've noticed without fail, you show me something who's got financial challenges in their life that they can't seem to break, they'll always have karma around this area, always. Either in themselves, from their past lives. I remember finding out my past lives. I'd literally been a swindler and a mobster, I found on quite a number of occasions, which kind of was funny, but at the same time I was going, it makes sense because I've always been very good at getting around laws. I've always been very, very good at finding creative ways around tax planning, around getting around any law I could feel like it. That's why I was never bothered about things like compulsory vaccinations, because I always knew a way around it. For me, I'm like, yeah, well, whatever. I'll find a way around the laws anyway. But in saying that, I realized that, you know, this is something that is a karmic law. And there's also the fact that, yeah, these days I use that gift for wisdom to help people, but once upon a time I didn't, you know. So basically, this is the other thing. They went greedy after the error of Balam for profit, and that brings financial curses. And going against higher authority. That's why something to be very wary of is getting involved in social unrest. Really careful about that. And Aaron, when he spoke on Saturday, mentioned this whole issue, and I couldn't agree with him more. But it's what they want. They want civil unrest, because then they can bring martial law and crack down. So this is why I'm doing so much work. We haven't had any trace of issues here at all, in where I'm in WA right now, like literally no trace. And I can tell you now, I know that the stuff we did, because I went through, did the hard work to map out this city. I worked out we had a number of trouble spots, a number of them. And I think I even mentioned last webinar, we even had a blooming place called Belial after Belial, one of the worst dark masters. A place called Cockburn, like burning cocks, is where Belial was. And that council is one of the most evil group of people you'll ever come across in your life. They're horrendous what they do. I've got an American, Native American shaman who I work with sometimes. And I got him to work with me on the council over here in Cockburn. And he goes to me, goodness me, he goes, that bunch is all possessed by some of the horrible demons. And that's what he worked out. So we had to go and dispossess a lot of them, and then things calmed down a little bit. So the point is that, you know, they have these places here. They have these horrible statues and symbols in different areas. We see them, and I'm sure you'd see that. They've got these war memorials shaped as a phallic, which are direct altars to Molech, honouring the god of war. They got everyone going up on Anzac Day, sitting there with candles, blue candles. I mean, this literally is straight out Druid sacrifices. It's the way they honoured their gods. So I'm shuddering a bit at the moment because I know what they're doing, and I'm thinking any minute now we're going to have a rash of deaths and civil unrest, because that's what they're basically setting up for. So that's why I've been thinking far out, you know. I'm going to get moving. I mean, we can't avoid it in some parts, but definitely I'm certainly doing what I can to avoid it here. So, yeah, and I mean, sure, some of you felt an eerie feeling when you saw that sort of stuff going on and knew that this is just a bit weird. So, going against higher authority, that's what this guy Cora did, and incited others to do the same. And I'm not talking about going against a government that actually does a law that's directly against higher law. Like if they passed a law saying you have to forcibly murder your kids or compulsory vaccinate, no way. But higher authority. And that's kind of why when I run webinars, I do it reasonably strictly, because as soon as I go to someone else's webinar, I'm very respectful to their rules. If I go to anyone's group, to me, if I go on your Facebook page, I'm coming into your house, you know. And basically, yeah, if you open up for debate, sometimes I'll do it, but if you then set a rule, then I'll obey the rule, you know? So it's that kind of stuff. So ritual sacrifice, ancient practice, sacrifice children and animals. So when you see these war memorials and groves, so the key places for you to look at in your areas are high places. There's 3 places: high places, beaches or river zones, and generally places where you've got a war memorial. And with a war memorial next to it, we'll have kind of like a green grass park area, and you might even see some strange shapes or formations, like a little circle of seats that are made out of stone or something like that. Like Kings Park in West Australia, they've got this big war memorial on the highest part overlooking our city. I mean, that's just obvious as anything to anyone who knows this stuff. And then next to it, they've got this sort of green park area, which sinks down within a little row of sort of like stone table seats. Now, if that is the most obvious grove, what's called a grove, you're going to get. And a grove, basically, to explain what a grove is, the war memorial is a penis shape, because that's like the male kind of phallic symbol. And then the grove is like the sacred vagina, as they call it, which they got the seats around it, like the stone seats for the druid. They sacrifice the child upon the altar. They make sure they do it at the moment of absolute terror, so you can see why. And then they get the blood out of it at that point there. And then often they have, you know, sex or rape someone upon the altar. So pretty graphic. Sorry about that. So Rob's got one right behind the house. Well, if you've ever had strange things going on or feeling a lot of heavy energy, Rob, yeah, I mean, if you have one right behind your house, and I bet you it's a big one, and it's probably on a fairly high place. So yeah, in Albany, they have a huge one right in the bloomin' top mountain. And as soon as we got that, we, as Christine and Fiona, who on here will tell you, just transformed the whole energy of Albany. And Fiona was bawling her eyes out. She couldn't even go up the mountain until we cleared it. And if you read the plaques, it's extraordinary. They even use numbers and sacred numbers and all that. So Meko, yeah, they got one in the city, in Albany, in Perth here, they've got one there. They've got one in Fremantle right on our highest hill, overlooking the Freemasons Lodge. So it's just, as soon as you've got an IQ over 50 and do any of this kind of research, you'll just see it as clear as a bell. They know this. They are not stupid. And It explains why their literally dark energy is completely overcoming the light. That's what's been one of the biggest frustrations or dislikes I have from love and life, and people saying, well, the planet's getting better and better. I remember saying one day, are you fucking gone mad? I said, you're seriously telling me that it's getting better and better when you see this kind of stuff going on? Now, someone said to me, I always say negative, Warren. And I was just like, gosh. And I'm sure many of you would know what I'm talking about. So these things here, beaches, this Molech and Chemosh are the two main, gods who are involved in this one. So the main thing is you've got the war memorials, and you've always got what's called the male, which is the phallic or penis symbol. So you'll see what I mean. And then you got the female, which is what's called the grove, often with a table or some kind of weird shaped structure or around. So you'll pretty much find it, and it varies in different spots what they've got. So yeah, it's fair. So you'll find it there, and it's pretty easy. These follow the Bible. So one of the things we've often done with our groups to help people, and they've all felt the difference, is removing the spider's web. And I remember when I first learned about the spider's web, which is a spiritual network that comes directly from the high levels of the Freemasons and the Lodge. And I can remember when I first learned about it, I thought, this sounds a bit weird. And that very day, we went down to Freemasons Lodge to listen to their public meeting just to give them a bit of shit. And he actually said, the exact words was he said about the spider's web. He said, this is where the spider's web comes from. And I just about fell off the chair. So it says, they that weave networks shall be confounded. So basically, these are the kind of activation they do to weave a web or network or spell over your mind. So you'll find it's pretty damn obvious when you read this book. So draw near here, you sons of the sorceress, the seed of the adulterer and the whore. So there's a very deep secret, which kind of is the reason that the feminine, the dark feminine, is so important here. There's this sorceress, and that's for a whole different webinar. And as soon as you do anything that kind of goes after this one, that's when you really know about it. So that's why I'm also having strict rules today for everyone's protection. Because at the end, when I'm telling you what you're going to do, you've got to follow what I tell you exactly. Because believe you me, I was a bit of a dumbass male. Women tend to listen to instructions better than men, from my experience. They're a bit smarter than us. But so as men, we just got to be smart. I was told very specifically how to go about it. I kind of went helter-skelter and got my ass kicked. So that's why it's very important. If you do this in the structure I teach you, you will actually notice a difference in your life. You'll see peace. If you don't, you can get your ass kicked a little bit, especially if you start biting on this one. So that's why I'm being a little bit cautious on what I say about that one just now. So against whom do you sport yourself? Against whom do you make a wide mouth? Inflaming yourself with idols under every green tree, and here you have it, folks, slaying the children in the valleys under the clefts of the rocks. So often you'll find in mountains down towards the bottom, you'll find rocks with weird shapes, and you'll see them. I mean, I saw some recently and went in, and I couldn't believe my eyes, just near our house. The buggers had set something up and clearly done some stuff, so we had to do all kinds of clearing. So I'm sure some of you by now are just about mouth dropping, but yeah, slaying the children in the valleys under the cliffs of the rock. So, and here's another one for you. Upon a lofty and high mountain, you set your bed, even there you went up to offer sacrifice. So they basically go to lofty and high mountains. So these guys do this, they know this stuff. They know this is just quoting ancient laws and ancient ritual laws of the planet, but have been around for thousands of years, which most of humanity today is blinded by it, doesn't know this kind of stuff, and calls you conspiracy theorists. And in all honesty, are some of the stupidest people that I've just about met in my life. So these days, I got blocked from someone today because I just basically called them, I basically gave them a little bit of shit. And I mean, you can see this here. I mean, seriously, So 59. So here's another one for you. So again, a warning. Your iniquities have separated you and your God. In other words, you're separated from source, from the brotherhood, for your hands are defiled with blood. So if there's this murder in terms of your thoughts of hate or the physical one, or you're part of a community where you got this stuff going on, and you're not making some attempt to deal with it, you're lumped in the same people as the consciousness of your community. Hence why it's very important to not be an accomplice to a crime. None calls for justice, nor any pleads for truth. And if some of you are thinking this sounds like a legal system, there you go. Now, they hatch cockatrice eggs, and here we go again, weave the spider's web. Here, each of their eggs dies, and that which is crushed breaks out into a viper. I can remember 2 years ago discovering that basically what they do is they implant cockatrice eggs in your head. And a cockatrice, I'll just show you what that actually is, and I basically had to pull it out of all the people in my group. And as soon as I did, everyone's mind went really clear. When I first got this out of my own head, I couldn't believe how clear my mind went. So what it does is it's a actual, it's like a little bit of a dragon with a bit of a cock's head or whatever else. So, or it's sometimes called, so it's like it's hatched by a serpent from the egg of a cock, like a monster. So it's like a little dragon thing, which basically in the body tail of a serpent. So it's basically putting in the satanic serpent into you, like a little monster thing in your head. So as soon as you start to get out of alignment and start to know stuff, they set the bloody thing off. Now, Stuart Swerdlow, who came from the CIA, very high up, when he came out and was teaching this to people here, he explained how, yeah, he goes, I used to, get people have car accidents and we'd unleash his mind control. And he said, you got to be very careful pulling them out, because you pull them out too quickly, they got booby traps and all kinds of stuff. So a legendary monster with a deadly glance, hatched by a serpent. So I'm sure the idea of that kind of shit going on doesn't particularly appeal to anyone. So these are the kind of things we start, you got to get pulled out and all that kind of stuff.
Hey,
so he that eats of their eggs dies, and basically that which is crushed breaks out into a viper. So it goes on here, and you can read various things, but it's not a particularly nice chapter. So Isaiah 65. So here's another one for you. About a rebellious people, and then a people that provoke me to anger continually, that sacrifice in gardens, which remain among the graves and lodge in the monuments. So this, again, sacrificing in gardens, or gardens is another word for groves. So, but the problem is, if you're in a community where this is going to go on, you're lumped up with this whole thing. So your community is caught up in this. So you're thinking, why is my community having governments do this horrible stuff? Unfortunately, whether you like it or not, there's collective karmic responsibility for a region. So if you're not, so the mass consciousness does affect you, and you know that. If you live with 5 idiots, it's hard not to become an idiot. If you live with 2 people who basically, are drug addicts and take ice and carry on like bananas, no matter how much love and light peace you have, it's very hard to function and live a happy life and a normal life. So this is why it's important to step up and make a difference and do this in your community, because it does actually affect you. Because as you've probably worked out by now, that while everyone's running around saying, go and take this app and do all this and do that, and you've got to do social distancing, these are the same idiots that in 2 years from now will be going and reporting you saying, oh, that person hasn't got a vaccine. That person hasn't done this. This person hasn't done that. This person's talking about microchipping. I think they're dangerous to our community. That's what starts happening. So you can see why, as well as changing your consciousness, whether we like it or not, I mean, it's like they said the other week, it's because we become a nation of robbers. So even if you do all the love and light work, if you don't clean out the curses on the land and get things in the community, well, it's going to indirectly affect you. And in all honesty, I'll tell you, one of the reasons why 2 years ago I had that experience was I actually said a month before, in April 2018, I actually begged the councils. I said, can you please just fucking take me home? I said, my kids are in good shape, my family, I've taught them that life is temporary and transitory, so be it. But I said, this planet is absolutely shit. I said, I can see what's going to happen to this place. I can see what's going on. People won't listen. People will just think I'm crazy if I say anything. When it started happening, in fact, probably 18 months ago, when I was having all these encounters in heaven and I was having all the higher realms appear to me, I said, people won't listen to me. I said, don't. And they kept telling me, you'll be surprised, you're going to get people listening to you. And I kept saying, they won't listen to me. I'm just some silly accountant who basically has spent most of his life helping self-serving rich people, doing fuck all good on this planet. And I said, you know, I said, people can tell me I do good. I said, I don't fucking good. I've just been an accountant who just basically in tax guy and a woman lawyer working straight for those clowns. So I said, you know, and I said, you can see where this is going to go. I don't want to be here. And in the end, I said, if I'm going to stay here, you better promise me that I can do something about this. So they kind of laughed and said, yeah, fine. So I actually do believe we can do something about this. And in all honesty, well, as I see it, don't need a lot of people. On my own, I've been able to do quite a bit on my own. Grace with me. I mean, Grace and I over the years, we've done a lot of stuff. I mean, Grace helped me, you know, do stuff. So truth is, I mean, if a couple of us can make a big difference, well, you get another 10 or 12 people doing this, and then another 15 or 20, well, you can bloody change the whole country, really. You can fucking get this sorted out. So you can see this here. So another one here, just to again show you, this is alluded to everywhere, this kind of practices. In fact, I don't have time to go through all of this, but if you actually go back and read the whole Old Testament, and when people call it barbaric, most of it was actually barbaric against the Molechan practices. The people that they were going after killing were basically people who did this kind of stuff to eradicate these guys out of the land. So, yeah, they sacrificed their sons and daughters to devil, and they shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and daughters who they sacrificed as the idols of Canaan, and the land was polluted with blood. I mean, come on, you know. So our land is polluted with blood. In 3 days' time, we have Walpurgis Night in Germany. So, which is where the biggest an animal sacrifice druid night on the highest mountain of Germany. I can't imagine what's going to happen in May after that little night happens. So, and you've had plenty of it going on Anzac Day. We know they do stuff on Anzac Day, and we do it leading up to Easter. So, yeah, so people, I think, are starting to get the urgency of this whole stuff, which is good. So very quickly, there has been a few falls of his masters, and the reason they're so problematic is many of them are very powerful. And you hear stupid people saying, oh, the dark can't overcome the light. Whoa, 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 whoa. Some of these dark masters are fucking powerful. Many of them actually were originally part of the higher brotherhood who broke away from the brotherhood. So they're pretty much created gods in their own right. And so some of you who studied alternative spiritual technology would learn about draconians, about the collapse of Mars and many other planets thousands of years ago, and technology experiments that went wrong. But basically, many people there were some who are what's called higher seed dimensional templates, but many were created as a slave race to mine the earth. So in other words, there are groups, many of these reptilians and guys doing this are just literally here to mine the earth, get as much vessels as they can, and not going to ship up to the planet. The second one is the Tower of Babel, where they had to block access to technology for protection of humanity. Now, from what I've found out, Earth has failed to ascend, in other words, to move out of its present vibration on 6 occasions, because every 26,000 years or so, they have an ascension cycle, where where the energies get high enough. It's to do with the way the cycles move. So from what I've understood from years of mystery school studies, it seems to be somewhere between 4 to 6 times. So it's in danger of happening again. Now, I do believe this time we're going to pull this off, but it's actually moving. So I want to quickly teach you about 4 curses, which are very important to understand, and the kind of things you'll be removing if you're going to get out there and, you know, remove these things and work on the land. So this is the most important one I've already alluded to. And the 10 Commandments, the 5th of Moses's was basically thou shalt not murder. Now, let's be very clear what thou shalt not murder means. It doesn't mean, despite what the do-gooders will tell you today, do not ever kill. If you basically had someone about to come in and rape your child and you grabbed your gun out and chopped them in the head, that is perfectly lawful under higher law. It's lawful under common law. It's lawful under the law of Moses. It's actually very clear. 100% lawful. if you go out in war to protect your country, like let's say that Japanese invaded Australia tomorrow and they were coming straight at your house and you had to go out and fight and you had to kill some people to protect your city, that's not breaking karmic law, okay? If you go out into war to fight basically to try and win some oil and take over the oil wells in Iraq, well, I think you would understand you're definitely breaking karmic law. So it all comes down to the intention and the purpose behind it. So innocent blood shed by murder brings a curse on the land until redeemed the blood cries for vengeance to release the curse. And I've already shown you this Genesis 10 where Cain said this one and where it actually said the blood of your brother cries for vengeance upon the earth. There's 3 ways to release a blood curse when you've got one from the land. Okay, there's 3 ways. One is it has to be an eye for an eye or tooth for a tooth. That's the Old Testament, okay? Or the original, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. So, in other words, an exact result. So if 7 people were killed, then 7 more have to die as a result. That's one way. That's one way that it happens. The other way is blood sacrifice of some kind. And originally, before Christ, and look, I will tell you one thing about this. I grew up in the church, kind of got fed up with it after having some great experiences I was fortunate enough to have. As time went on, I kind of lost a lot of heart because I realized the churches were controlled by states and by idiots. So I ended up going out and studying every different religion, spirituality I could lay my hands on. I studied everything around. I learned about Mormonism, Muslim, Enoch. What amazed me was most of them I actually found did have semblance of truth in them. And I managed to pluck out the good parts about them and cast out the bathwater and keep the baby. And that's why you probably know, I know that a couple of people said, you know, you're one of the most unusual people because people turn up thinking I do some kind of weird preaching. I'm like, well, no. At the end of the day, I just do what works. And if I sat there wearing a pranic, you know, purple robe and shaved my head and basically dyed my head green worked, I'd do it, you know. I haven't seen anyone do that and it's worked, but if that's what worked, I would do it, you know. So what I found was once I came back, I ended up coming back and I found that every single spiritual thing came back to this concept of similar things around this and certainly around the blood around Christ. Now, not the kind of Christ that you've heard about in the churches, about some limp-wristed guy who walks around with a dimpy smile, smiling at you from across. No. When you actually read the Bible and read the Gnostic mystery about teaching, this guy was an absolute radical badass. I mean, he turned water into wine for a party. He openly went and beat up bankers who were extorting people financially. He told people how to use energy and spiritual laws to pay no tax legally or lawfully. He used to openly call the church leaders of his days a bunch of vipers and snakes and used to deliberately troll them and turn up at their meetings just to upset them deliberately and break their rules. And when he even predicted his own death, said he was willing to die for the people, went willingly to his death, let himself be brutally beaten because he said, I've got to take on the karma for the planet. I'm willing to do that. And if you study the Indian Kriya Yoga, for example, the Kriya Yoga masters all talk about the importance of karmic redemption. And Sri Yukteswar, Yogananda, and Babaji, for example, actually say that when karma takes place, it must be redeemed. And they speak a lot about karma. And Christ even told the Roman governor, he goes, you got no power over me other than what's given to you by above. He said, I'm doing this by choice, mate. So he knew the power of the blood sacrifice of an innocent person willingly. And this went back to ancient karmic law. Indian Kriya Yogas know this. Many of the Kriya masters willingly take on karma this day to release people. When there's certain karma, which not having understood the blood of Christ, they would do that for their people. And if you read Autobiography of a Yogi by Sri Yukteswar, they talk about this. So the blood sacrifice, well, really, fortunately, we got it easy, guys. We actually got it really easy. When we kind of get rid of preconceived ideas, it's actually really fucking easy. I mean, Exodus 12, you don't have to go and find a goat and actually go and kill the goat and do a weird thing and shave your head or anything like that. It doesn't work like that anymore. So yeah. So basically, when you read Exodus 12:7, so there's a very clear instruction, because there's about to be a plague come upon Egypt, like there was a prediction of a plague. So the plague, basically, they'll take of the blood and strike it on the suicide post and on the upper doorpost of the house. So there was a plague, take of the blood. So, and the blood shall be a token upon the houses, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. Now, this is going to be very important. That's why I knew with the mark of the beast that when you actually read the scriptures, the mark of the beast cannot touch you at all. And Revelation actually clearly says that the mark of the beast cannot touch those who are redeemed with the mark of God. Okay? So, and when you read this scroll of Ezekiel, chapter 9, it clearly talks about a mark from the council that we put upon you. And that mark means they can't touch you. You're off limits. So they shall take of the blood. In Rebecca Brown's book about setting the captives free, she actually said that as soon as they put the blood of Christ over their house, and the sorceress said, we can't get near them. We actually have to trick pastors out of their rights. Otherwise, we can't touch them. And I mentioned 2 days ago, I know for a fact there was a Queensland pastor who was literally breaking Queensland open with a spiritual reformation 40 years ago. And they tried everything. And this guy knew the blood of Christ. He knew how to combat them. And he knew how to break their spells. So in the end, they looked until they finally found his weakness was around women. And they basically sent in a woman, exactly like Numbers 25, the trick Balam used to get them to break karmic law, and basically got them off track and were able to get him. So the point is, I know this myself. I just, since I was young, I've just put the blood of Christ over my house just daily. As soon as I feel scared, I sometimes deliberately walk into the most dangerous place just to remind myself that I can think of, and walk right through it in the dark just to remind myself that the blood of Christ protects me. Deliberately put myself at risk just in case I'm getting soft, you know. So I just do that just to remind myself, and no, I'm not just giving a theory. And me a number of times. I've never been physically beaten up in my life. I mean, there's been many times, for example, things. The number of things are about to happen to me miraculously. It's all because of his covenant that's made. It's an irrevocable contract, and that's what the dark know. That's why they know that when there's a blood curse on the land from murder, they can fucking do what they want on the land. They can release these spirits. So you can see that. And of course, the glorious scroll of Hebrews. I mean, this is one I really like, this one. This guy nailed it. You know, he really got a damn good idea of how this all works. So he goes through some very deep truths. And I saw this place, when I was taken into heavens, I saw this place, by the way. Incredible. So it said that Christ, neither by the blood of goats and calves, so in other words, he didn't go around killing animals and doing weird shit, but by his own blood, he entered into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. So if the blood of bulls and goats could basically clean up and break curse, how much more shall the blood of Christ, who offered himself without spot, purge your conscience to serve the living God? So like I said, this is not saying join a religion. You don't even need to ever go near a church. In fact, I really hope you're not that dumb, you know. Basically, a true church, and I hate that word, but, you know, is basically a community of people just doing what we're doing here right now, getting on with stuff and building a structured thing for ascension, basically. So this is a covenant I'll make with him after these days. And it says, right, it doesn't say I'll go get a priest from the Catholics or someone else who'll tell you what to do. I will put my laws in their hearts and mind. In other words, you'll have it yourself. You'll have it all within you. You'll know what to do. And their sins and iniquities I won't remember anymore. So where there's remission, which means they've got rid of it, therefore boldness to enter into the holiest by the blood of Jesus. So in other words, that's all I pray. That's why I know this. That's why I know this can't come near me. That's why I have no fear of it. So this is the third way to do it, and this is all. It's pretty much nice and easy. So another thing to watch is this thing called the spirit of terror. So generally, I worked out 6 weeks ago, I thought, fuck, you know, I thought they're releasing terror. And you can see the terror that's come into people over the last 6 weeks. That's because weeks ago, they started releasing the spirit of terror using some very advanced occultic rituals. So what they do is they do this blood sacrifice, and they release spirits from the underworld or land of the Rephaim, or also known as the land of the giants. And these guys are basically guys that were around 4,000 or 5,000 years ago that came out of an interbreeding experiment that went horribly wrong. And they literally were cannibals and used to eat human flesh. And you can read about it in the Book of Enoch. And Jonathan Gray, who's going to be speaking for our Awakening Within group on Wednesday, is an archaeologist who's got the proof of 18 to 30 feet tall people, fossils and everything, as well as about the existence of Noah's Ark and all kinds of stuff. So interesting stuff, like really cool stuff. So Ezekiel 32 talks about this, and I learned this from the guy who trained me with this. But these are very precise how they do this. Very precise. So they give you the names of the groups as well. They give you the exact names of the spirit groups they call in. So this one group called Asa. So it says, whose graves are on the sides of the pit. That's why you often see these stones around these groves, which cause terror in the land of the living. Now, I won't take you through the whole thing, but you'll find Elam is another group. And again, they're terror. These are the exact scriptures they invoke in reverse, okay? So this is actually saying there'll be judgment upon these groups that have caused terror. So these ones bring them straight back up again. So Meshach and Tubal. This one here, by the way, is the ones behind the Khazarian to control the banking financial system. So this group here. So that's the banking system. And this one's the Gog and Magog ones, which basically are Russia, China, a lot of these ones doing this kind of stuff. So it's all in here. So it's nicely, easily laid out for you. You just got to understand it. And the other one, which is very important for those of you who've ever had problems with the law, who here has had problems with the law? It's basically what's called the flying curse. Now, this is one of the ones I was taught that when I read this, I was like, fuck, when I was taught this. Again, I was taught this by guys who knew this stuff and knew how to break this stuff. So this is this flying curse. And it's a scroll. So this is a curse that goes forth over the face of the whole earth, that everyone that steals should be cut off on this side. And everyone should be swears should be cut off. So the curse goes into the house of the thief, then the house of the false witness, and it shall remain there until it consumes everything you've got. So the moment you've been involved in false witness, directly or indirectly, which is a legal system that deliberately swindles people, or basically stealing, a system that steals from you, or you get involved in that system. Like, let's say you work for this government and you're walking around enforcing fines or effectively stealing system, you've now got this curse, which can basically be used at the will of those who operate it to basically wipe you out. So is anyone here who's had weird wipeouts financially, for example, or just suddenly had the law come after you, had an extraordinarily bad experience at the family court? And I'm sure that some of you have. So now the key is to realize which spirits are behind this. They're called the Sons of Belial, a very specific group of people. Christine Norby's on this webinar, she's aware of them. They came after her in her work with false witness. So I told her about these scriptures and I went through and did some work, me and my son. The next day she turned up and the guy apologized. And it was extraordinary. You probably remember that, Christine. But the false witness, you'll find this in 1 Kings. And I won't go into this one right now, just give you the reference which you can read. But the whole story of 1 Kings talks about a guy who basically went into a vineyard and basically used the law by writing letters to actually rip people off and trick them with the law. So actually, in fact, I'll show you this one, but you actually will see this here, where writing letters, so using the law, and then using these 2 men for false witness, and it was basically to steal this guy's property. So that's an example of how that's used. And then this one here, the sons of Belial, it talks about how they were used in the priesthood to rip people off and effectively steal their money and use it for personal gain. This scripture here says they can't be taken in the physical. So if you try and fight these laws in the physical, you're going to lose and you're going to end up in a concentration camp. It's that simple. Or in some kind of thing. If you try and fight this, I know Grace was horrified because when we see what some people do on Facebook, we're very aware right now. That's why we're just teaching this stuff and very privately, because I'm like, you can't fight this in the physical. So to break this curse and reverse it, to fall it upon them. So this is why we bring these scriptures in and why I read these out, because they know to put their incantations into position, like witchcraft. So we do the same, but we use the correct ones, and we just read this. I just read the incantations, the highest sacred word, and put it into position. So false witness, you've got this here, and I've mentioned this here. It's the seventh commandment, deliberately perverting truth for your own personal benefit. So if you've done that, you've got to clear that karma. And stealing of any kind, same kind of deal. That's the eighth commandment. So what this says here is whenever you see heaven shut up or locusts commanded or these pestilences, and that word means viruses or plagues, it says, if my people, in other words, those who are connected with source or higher truths, not with some silly church, humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, in other words, stop doing their karmic stuff, clear their karma, I'll forgive their sin. But here's the thing that gets missed, I'll heal their land. Bloody awesome, Matt. You know, I'll heal their land. We went down to Albany, and I mean, Christine, Grace, and I, and a couple of others, we were doing all kinds of stuff around the scripture to heal the land, and Albany's been unaffected by this whole thing. Like, life's just gone on as normal. So, curses, the exciting thing are, they're a double-edged sword. So either they're on us, or our land, or on those. I can remember, it was so exciting when I first learned how to actually put this back. I started doing etheric work, and I discovered some people putting some stuff on me. One particular ex-partner I'd had, wasn't Grace, by the way, but it was a particular ex-partner. She was actually attacking me and putting curses on me. She was very advanced in witchcraft. I didn't realize it, but found out, because I was having horrible stuff happening to me. And in fact, I'll tell you openly, I literally, it's like my sex drive as a man just went right up, and it was like I went impotent. And I couldn't understand it because it wasn't me. And I ended up working with a shaman, discovered she put curses upon me and actually put curses on my sexual organs. And she put a curse around me in other areas. So I actually went through, dealt with it, repelled the curse and put it back sevenfold. And I think within a day or so, I spoke to her and she was very apologetic. I didn't even talk about that issue, but another time when she attacked me and I stopped it, 10 minutes later, she wrote to me and really apologized to me. I had an ex-business partner who I'd fallen out with, and my business for the next 6 months, it's like I couldn't make a single sale. I was about to go broke. Discovered he was cursing me. We went ahead with a sevenfold curse reflector shield around, and I met him a few days later, and he walked up to me very nervous and he kind of put his arm around me and said, "Let's make things right." I never spoke to him about what I'd done. So this stuff works. So hopefully now some of you are getting quite excited, or at least seeing some hope here. Proverbs says, an undeserved curse cannot come the rest. You heal your land, heal your life, bingo. He that is not for me is against me, and he that gathers with me, not with me. So it's either for nor against. You either work for Satan or you work for Christ. That's why those who see my Facebook page, I talk about being Satan's microchip little bitches, and go from there. So, okay. So now let's start to get onto the process. And I'll show you what you've got to do. You can take this away. I'll even put these steps onto the Facebook group so you can print it out and take it away and follow it, okay? So believe you me, those who know me know how much I struggle to kind of put this into a system. I kind of know what needs to be done, but I work my ass off to put this into a system, make this easy for everyone, and to make sure that people are protected as well. So got myself a bit stiff from hours on the computer. So have a clear intention to cleanse the blood and the curses, okay? So cleansing all the curses. I'll show you some rituals that I use, and this comes from a mixture of earth energy teaching, mystery schools, working with shamans, the scriptures, and the keys of Enoch, and the Gnostic Gospels, okay? So read sacred activations of scrolls. I do a code activation, perform the physical actions, protection rituals, and then this one's really important. Go home and take good care of yourself. You know, go home and bang your partner, or go and have some good food, go and have a nice rest the next day, drink plenty of water. You may feel a little bit like you've been knocked out after doing it. You may not. Just go and take good care of yourself. Go for a walk, go out and relax, and just show some love to the people around you. So that's my biggest suggestion if you do this. I use oil and salt. It's what I was taught, and it works for me. And that's how I tend to work, everyone. I tend to do things by instinct, and I'm taught stuff, and then I find out the basis later. But olive oil, or what's called anointing oil, and I always get pure virgin olive oil, is being used in almost every culture as a healing remedy, okay? So Psalm 23, 4 verse 6 says, he anoints my head with oil, my cup overflows. So Psalm 23, I think it's, he anoints my head with oil, my cup overflows. Sorry, it's 5 to 6. James 5 specifically says about anointing, if anyone's sick, you go to the elders of the church and they anoint you with olive oil and you will be made whole. So I've often done that, anointed with olive oil, and yeah, it's pretty much a guarantee that things get healed through the use of oil. It's an ancient priesthood ritual used in many cultures. And 2 Kings 4, verses 2 to 7, there was a prophet called Elisha. And what he did there was he got some oil and multiplied the oil, basically. So that's an example. And I also use salt. Now, I found that it was commonly used. This was the one that had me perplexed, because all I knew was it worked. When I didn't use it, it wouldn't work as well. I finally found out the references and the reason for salt. So these scriptures here, basically, I'll just show you one of them. Because like I said, you can go back and watch this and really look at this yourself, because if you're serious, you want to do your own research. So as I said, I've put this together for you to give you a bit of as much help as I can on this one. Because gosh, if I could see Victoria, New South Wales, all these places have a big difference, it would be awesome. Okay. Got that one wrong, I think. Oh no, sorry, it's 40. So basically what happened was there was death in the pot of food and they cast meal into it. In other words, he used a food or substance to heal death in the pot, okay? Now, they didn't use salt, but what you do is then when you go to 2 Kings 19, chapter 2, sorry, I knew it was somewhere, so apologies for that. So basically what happened was the ground was barren and cursed and there was no water. So he said, bring me a new cruse which is a vase and put salt in it, and they did that. He then went forth to the spring and cast the salt in there, and thus said the Lord, I've healed these waters. There shall be no more death or barren land. And the waters were healed that day. So that's what I did with the beach when I saw that incredible white mist turn up I mentioned. So that's why find the high places, find the war memorials, and definitely find your beaches or a key beach. Like I generally, obviously going down the whole beach is a pretty big job. So I just found particular parts of the beach I felt really led to, like key beaches. And you tend to find you will be led. If you do this work, you'll be led. And it's phenomenal what starts happening. And I've got a couple of others here, and these ones are more just because these are 2 ones about the curse of salt. Salt can also be a curse. So by doing that, it heals the land and the curse is what they've done. Because a cursing is a double-edged sword, basically. So it's a double-edged sword, which means it works both ways. Okay, any questions before I go through and I'll just quickly show you the rituals and what you do, okay? Christine, is it safe to go out and do this by yourself, Warren? Absolutely, Christine. I'm going to give you a set of rituals now, and just follow what I give you, okay? I've set this up in a way to make this very safe. So I understand spiritual authority, which pretty much means that if spirits want to attack for the work you're doing, they've got to basically hit me first, okay? So I'm setting this up. So pretty much myself and Christ and those angels will get hit. And it's the way spiritual authority works. And it's like in a business, if you've got a company director of a company, they'll go after you first. So let's just say that you're employed by a tax agent firm or an accounting firm and something goes wrong with the work, you're not at risk, it's the director of the company that's at risk. That's how it actually works in that kind of law. So that's why if you've got a job somewhere, you're actually quite safe. Well, those of you in business would know if your name is on it, you're the one at risk. So that's basically how I set this up. It's been one of the reasons in the past I've been avoiding to teach this to people, because I just thought most people would not be able to handle the backlash. So, yeah. So, and I'm being very clear. I'm not saying, oh my God, now I'm doing some controlling, silly, cultish thing. I'm just saying in this particular thing, just operate under the structure, a bit like if you came and worked on my business, okay? So, what we do, okay, so who's pretty keen to basically go forward and take some action with the right guidance, and who's really enjoyed this so far? Just in the chat, just give me a bit of feedback. I think everyone's just been listening. Okay, so I've got Christine, Miko, Sam, Rob, Kim, Avril, Alex. Oh, wow. It's better than I thought. So, okay, so this is going to be great. Looks like we'll have enough people to at least actually do something. I got a cheeky private comment from Grace that I normally would do. Well, the worst case scenario is that nothing happens, and at least we're giving it a fucking go. That's as I'm sure you would agree. In my case, this works spectacularly, like absolutely spectacularly. So, truth is, it will work. I mean, there's no question it will work. You will see a difference in some form. So, I start with the earth ritual, okay? So I center and align with Mother Earth and ground myself. Now, look, it depends on how you work. I'll say 1 to 5 minutes. I don't take that long. So I center myself with breathing. So what I normally do is I normally do something like, you know, a 4-3-6 breath or something like that. And what I mean by that is 4 breaths in through the nose, 3 hold, 6 out through the mouth. And just do that for about a minute or 30 seconds. And as you're feeling yourself calm down, imagine like two like cords or lines going out of your 2 feet into the earth, going right down to the center of the earth and connecting with the earth chakra. And even if and yes, I will send the slides, Miko, no question. And even if you can't, if you find it hard to visualize, like some people do, just by your intention, just connect to the earth chakra, okay? And then what I normally do, in fact, I forgot to mention this, grounding to earth chakra through your feet, and then connecting to heaven chakra through head. So through the crown chakra or top of head. So that's basically what you do. Through the crown chakra or top of your head, okay? So I just imagine like a central white light. And this is what the Brotherhood tend to do. It's a white light or central vertical channel. So that's what I call it here. So central vertical channel is another way of looking at it, where it's going all the way up to earth and heaven. So you've got this connection between the two, okay? Then what I do is once I've got that connection with heaven and earth, and you'll feel it straight away, and even now as I'm explaining this to you, you can be doing this. So you can just be imagining yourself connect straight through to the earth. So even now you can imagine, for example, light going right through, like a big white light, right through your feet, right down to the center of the earth. Some people like to imagine it connecting like like looping around and being tied up like a knot. That's what I personally do. And then I just feel the energy and the white light going right up through my whole aura, through my whole being, and going right through my crown chakra and going right to Father Heaven, right to that energy. And then what you do is you imagine a golden vortex spinning clockwise at the speed of light. A vortex is another word for a whirlwind, and that's to activate in what's called your Merkaba. So you just imagine it going around you at the speed of light. You can even play around with it and try 10 times the speed of light. And you can feel it now. Then you also project a white crystalline pyramid coming from heaven over you. So coming heaven over you and the region you are. That's what I do. If you also want to do it as well, if you want to imagine a second small one in your third eye. Okay? An optional thing you can do, if you feel like it, is to align by intention with the magnetic frequency of the earth. Okay? But that's for some of you who are a bit more evolved and you've done this kind of stuff before. If you haven't, just kind of follow what I've given you here. This way you can just do that, okay? So now you can just imagine the pyramid coming over you, over the whole group, and over your third eye. So just out of interest, who's doing that right now and who's already feeling the increase in energy just by doing that? Noticing I've learned to do this without going into a quiet state for hours. So yeah, Fiona, Sam, Alex. So those who are sensitive to energy would feel the instant, I can feel an instant increase in energy. So the second thing that I do is next we invite, yes, Grace, I'm doing a code. The Brotherhood and Galactic Councils and all aligned with, and this is what I do, something like this. I'll just say, I invite the 4 archangels, Uriel, Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel, and give thanks to them for being here. I call all those, I'll call all those aligned with the office of the Christ and the blood of Christ. I'm very exact. So as you can see, I kind of try not to miss anyone out. The order of Enoch and Metatron. And they're each different roles. The order, the Christ is the Redeemer office and the transformer and the earth. The order of Enoch is more the teacher or more the blueprinter, the teacher. So Melchizedek's the order of the priesthood or teacher, but the Enoch is more the blueprinter or the activator. So I call all those ones in. The order of Melchizedek, all those align with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and then I say, and I call them in also. And all those align with the Shekinah universe, which is the Holy Spirit, the high sacred feminine, the quantum universe, Pistis Sophia, and that's the redeemed one, and I often clarify that one, and Mother Mary. And I just invite them all here now as we're speaking, and all those align with those. So now some of you are sensitive would feel the energy increase even more. And even if you don't feel it, you just do it by faith and by intention, okay? You just follow the rules. Next, I do this. I command all false spirit guides who are not aligned with those mentioned to immediately leave now. This is critical. Otherwise, you risk these buggers turning up or hiding themselves, and they've done this before to me, or guides already in your field through mind control, dance, and implants interfering with what's going on, okay? So this kind of neutralizes them, stops them from getting in the way, okay? So I've commanded all them to go right now from all of us while we're feeling this. So who here is already feeling an increase in energy and feeling their mind really quiet and a lot more at peace? And the answer is I'm sure that some of you would be. Just type in the text chat what you're noticing, what you're feeling. I'm just curious to see who's feeling it. Yep, calm. Fiona, Max, yep. The next one, as I do 3 sacred scriptures, and I just read these out. This is what I did at Chalk Hill and do this with just about everywhere. So I would go ahead and I read the Lord's Prayer. Exactly. This is very important. I was taught this by the guy who told me, always read this psalm. This is the protection psalm. This has been my little secret weapon since I was a boy. And this one here about the healing the land. So I read them out. So you can kind of get and make sure it's a King James Bible, okay? From the King James version, and do not the New King James, okay? Not. That's been tampered with quite deliberately, and if I showed you in time, you'd be horrified. From the King James Version Bible, not new one. So you can generally find it pretty easily. So you read those ones there. Next is activate with some kind of symbol. Now you can either do that by projecting it there onto that regional land. You may even print out a copy or color one of this and just go and put it somewhere, like if there's a war memorial, just me there, as well as projecting it. So you activate. So you imagine a flower of life. In all kinds of studies, that when the flower of life has been put over somewhere and you feel that, it brings a very, very instant healing and all kinds of stuff. So you can even now, I'm imagining the flower of life over the whole group and giving you energy. And there's other codes you can use as well. So, yes, okay, Eliza, yep, sure. You can read the slides and you can watch the rest of it. There's only going to be about 10 minutes to go anyway. It's literally almost done, Eliza. And then here's the key one, okay, after doing that. So this is what you do next, okay? Very important. So let's just say that you're down your local beach, okay, as an example. So let's just say that you're at your beach, or let's just say you're at the War Memorial, or let's just say you're going to walk around this particular park where you can see there's sacred altars everywhere, and you're going to do that. So get your oil and salt together. I've got all mine ready to go, which I always have a sample ready to go, which I just use for this purpose. Say the following with authority and conviction, and I've written it out for you exactly. Notice I use the words by delegated authority. This is because I'm delegating you delegated authority to do this. In this way, this is where I can ensure some protection until you learn to be strong enough to do this yourself without fear, okay? So by delegated authority, it is commanded by the laws of the golden liquid realms and the chemical powers and the power of the Christ vested in me, that all curses, hexes, and spells be released from the land now. Wherever the sole of my feet shall tread and in the surrounding regions, this is done now. Actually, I'll just fix it. With this oil, I anoint the land. With salt, I heal the land. I remove all curses off the land and return it sevenfold from which it came. I claim karmic release for the land and healing is for 2 Chronicles 7:14 by the blood of Christ. I command the release of all blood sacrifice curses and cry for vengeance and release of all trapped souls by the power of Christ to realms justly earned now. So I anoint the land for blessing and prosperity. You could even do that. With salt, I heal the land. Further, by delegated authority, that whatever I bind on earth is bound in heaven and loose on earth is loosed in heaven, I bind all dark masters, demon spirits not aligned with the brotherhood, galactic councils, send them back to whence they came from to receive rewards justly earned. I loose angels and spirits aligned with the brotherhood and galactic councils to bless this land and region now. In fact, I'm just going to mention one thing. And get galactic councils, especially Council of 9, that's who I work with, to bless this land and region now. Glory be to God the Father and all aligned with the brotherhood of light. Ta Asia in Tadoi, I am this I am. Then just give thanks and start walking. So that's when you go, and with the water, if you're doing the beach, make sure you put the salt actually into the water. And you don't have to I just go ahead and sprinkle it in different places because it's the intention that counts. And I'll put some salt there, put a bit of oil, keep walking, do a little bit more. Sometimes I go with my sons and we do it there. And we just keep walking until we feel it's time to stop. Or if you're at the War Memorial or you're at anywhere else, you just do it around there. I'm mindful as well that it's not seen as vandalism. I just go there. Or olive oil is a very, good substance. Salt is fine. And then I just go and start walking. So I keep walking down, and Fiona just had a big gust of wind as you finished the reading. Yeah, look, there's a lot of power. I can feel this here. And then once you finished it, to seal the ritual and protect yourself and your families afterwards, read Psalm 91. That's a great psalm. Read Psalm 149 verses 5 to 8 and Psalm 27 verses 1 to 6. Psalm 91 is a brilliant protection. And then just simply say, I give thanks to the Brotherhood and Galactic Council for their protection. I declare a sevenfold blessing upon my financial life, my health and prosperity, and speak divine favor over my family, and all of this for my region and community. Also, I declare an angelic hedge of protection around my house and family. I declare a golden protective field around me and my house and family, thereby transforming any curses spoken against me and my family and finds into a sevenfold blessing. I thank you, Father, in your brotherhood for your glorious favor and divine mercy. And then I'll even say, may peace and safety, prosperity be in my community today. Amen. So this way, what you're doing as well is you're calling in blessing and release. Okay, so any questions on that before we finish off with an activation? And then as soon as I've done, I'll make sure that the slides get put up on the Facebook group as a top priority for everyone, okay? I can either give you all the slides or just give you the activations. In fact, what I'll probably do for now is give you the activations, but you can always watch the recording of the slides just to kind of keep it simple. So any questions? Does everyone understand what's being done here? Does everyone understand what you've got to do? Is that ritual clear enough? Avril, good question. You place the oil. Yeah, I just poured it. I just kind of walk around flicking it, Avril. Like I'll just pour a little bit in the water. Like I'll start it off by pouring a little bit in there. Then after that, I'll just walk around just flicking it a bit, keep flicking it a bit, keep flicking it a bit. And then at the very end, when I finish, pour a bit more in there. And then sprinkle in the salt as well. And if you've got a second person to go with, like let's say there's two people here who are listening together, going together is always good with someone else. But you could do it on your own too. Have you ever had people interrupt you doing it? Only time it ever happened to me was when they were building one of these groves in Rockingham, and it was obvious what they were doing. So actually, they had all these fences and walls around it. So I broke in with an ex-SAS soldier and a couple of other people and went and did it. And we got caught. And I just told him, yeah, we're just anointing it with oil. And I showed him, and he thought I'd gone mad and just laughed and let me go. So Scott, I think you got your mic on, mate. So questions. Alex, an eye drop bottle for the oil. Yeah, I don't really worry so much at the sign of the cross, Alex. I think it's an old Catholic thing myself. But any good times of the day? I tend to do it either at night or in the morning. I prefer to do it at dark so people don't see what I'm doing. Although sometimes, Avril, I have done it during the day. Like when I did Fremantle, when I had that extraordinary experience, and when I walked down doing it, I was hearing heavenly music as clear as a bell. I was actually hearing it. And at first I thought I was imagining it, but I just stopped in the end and I heard it. It was as clear as a bell, the loudest heavenly music the whole time as I was walking. And to this day, one of the most beautiful tunes I've ever heard in my life. I can hear it now, and I wish I could replicate it in the earthly realm. I know Max would absolutely love it. You know, Max is on here with that. But yeah, it was the most beautiful music I've ever heard. And I think I told you that the only time, and I had an open vision of white light pouring out of the beach. There's something about beaches. Whenever I've done beaches is when I've seen extraordinary things. When I've done war memorials and other places, I've certainly seen amazing things. Rob asked a very good question. Any chance of anything going wrong? My worry is evil spirits coming in my house. That's why I've given you a very strict protocol. You won't have a problem. if you do it that way and you do it under delegated authority, that's the secret, okay? So you're simply going, and you can even say delegated authority as told by Christ and as told by Warren. And I would even, you know, go as far as to say, and I've done this before, like when I've gone into an area which I'm not sure about, which I did recently, I said, I do this work, but only in alignment with the Council of Nine, with the higher brotherhoods, and if anything I'm doing is in any way contrary to higher good or contrary to what, you know, to my level of readiness or what's the higher will, let it be ineffective, let it be neutralized, and let it not take place out of an in higher alignment. So I have done it a few times when I've been a little bit cautious. So you can always do that, because it's the power of your words that cover you and make your intention clear. So that way. And this Psalm 23 and Psalm 91 and the blood of Christ, they just don't like that at all. They really don't like that. So what you can do now is any other questions before we finish off with an activation? If you can't get to the actual location of physical, can you do this by intention, imagination? Ideally, you want to do it in the physical. I must admit, I sometimes kind of go into a place I'm not meant to go to do this, which it's saying, and it wasn't really a big issue, but like, you know, things like saying, you know, don't enter this, trespassers, and I just went in there, and like I said, I got arrested by the cops for doing it once at a place, and it made an amazing difference to the area. But yeah, most of the time I try and do things properly. I really do. But that's always my preference. Rental property, well, yeah, I'd first do it for your region. In terms of your rental property, I'd do your own house, and then that's what I did. I did my own house first, and then I went round to do it at other place. Then I went round to do it in that high place in the region. So my guess is that if you look hard enough, you can find a high place in your region, or a beach or something where you can do that, where you can be led. So the main thing is to do some research and find out what's around. And like Rob saw, that horrible war memorial right outside him, you'll find, if you get, any of you here get some unusual attacks or whatever else, like, you know that as soon as I'm telling you this, it makes sense to you, and you've actually already seen some of his groves or things like that. Is there anyone? And straight away has kind of seen this kind of stuff? Yeah, Max, Rob? I mean, look, there's tunnels under these places. I mean, these war memorials in the city, there's tunnels where sacrifices go on. And I remember when I was first told this, I used to think, what? And then recently I found, someone was telling me, I said they'd found some tunnels. And I was like, yeah, well, I knew about that. Yeah, Caitlin and Elkie. Armadale's one of the highest places in Australia. Oh, yeah, you guys would have it hammered there then. Alex, one at my beach and at a school. Oh, yeah, go to your beach, Alex. Definitely do your beach. Because that beach, see, I've done south of the river, but not north. So I do think that north of the river in Perth is at risk of some kind of real breakout of unrest. And it didn't surprise me when I heard they had, you know, they were talking about quarantine and concentration camps at Optus Oval and all that some weeks ago. Whereas where we are, they've left it completely alone. So, yeah, I mean, I have gone down the city and done half of the river, and I'm about to do the other half the next couple of days, and someone's got to do South Perth. So skyscrapers, yeah, mountains are more common, Max. I mean, they can do stuff from skyscrapers for sure, but mountains are more common. Yeah, Christine, South Perth is a foreshore river facing the city. So, I mean, when you look at the grid lines, they've normally got pentagons and grid lines. Yeah, well, if you could do South Perth, Christine, that would make life so easy, just down that foreshore river facing the city. Because I'm going to go down to on the other side of Perth. I want to finish that off because I've already done part of that with the boys. But if you could do South Perth, that would really be good. Because then we can that'll block the city off. And I've got the war memorial. Then the last place I want to get is somewhere on the east side. So I know there'll be a Freemasons lodge, or there'll be some kind of there'll be a key spot, because they normally have a pentagram, like, which will basically be like at the top of Kings Park. So I know another place in Perth, for example, is Gosnells. They've got a horrible Freemasons lodge where all kinds of horrendous stuff goes on. So if there's anyone here who lives near Gosnells, let me know in West Australia, because definitely Gosnells needs to be done. And there's Armid. Oh, you live near Gosnells, Christine. Oh my gosh, you little ripper. So yeah, South Perth, and you got to sort out Gosnells. And don't worry, Christine, I'll help you with that one. Because yeah, Gosnells is really important. Yeah, demolish in Margaret River. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, Christine, Alex will go with you. Oh, it's perfect. Yeah, that'd be great, Alex, if you can team up with Christine and get this done. But yeah, if we can get Gosnells sorted out and get that one. And then we've got to somehow just work out what's on the east side of the city, because that's the one area I haven't done anything yet. And I know there's something there somewhere. I just haven't been able to find what it is. So the main thing is to find these places. And yeah, Aaron, of course, for those of you who heard when Aaron was on the other week, or a couple of days ago, he was talking about all this and confirming everyone. So Rob, anyone in Melbourne, northern suburbs? Oh, Rob, yeah, gosh, Melbourne's good. You got. I was wondering if there'd be anyone over there, because that place is getting hammered more than anywhere else at the moment. You've got a horrible place, Rob. I mean, your court has got some of the worst satanic symbols I've just about ever seen. I mean, when I go to Melbourne, it's got the most oppressive energy. And yeah, I actually said, oh, that place is going to be all kinds of problems. I actually said this 2 months ago with this whole lockdowns. Yeah, they've got like horrendous like symbols over your courts there. There's those war memorials just all around there. So Helen's in the Midland area. Okay, yeah, well, Midland's quite useful because up near the hills in Parkerville, like Perth Hills, Helen, I know there's somewhere up there near Parkerville, because that's where a lot of stuff happens in Perth. Averil, Scotland has much energy. Oh, look, all that place has. They've been really busy, like really busy. So, like really busy. So my approach is on Averil made the good question. I just kind of do it respectfully. Like I see it as I'm going to Leicester City. I generally like to do it at night when it's dark. I carry the olive oil and the salt. I also imagine a hedge of protection around me. Like I always imagine a pyramid and a shield around me and whoever's with me. And since I've done that, I mean, no one really approaches me at all. So I just go out there for that reason. Sometimes early in the morning, I'll go out and do it as well. And like I said, sometimes I'll do it during the day, especially if it's kind of quite cold weather and not many people's out. So any questions? So it looks like we got some people at least willing to do some action, which is really good. Yeah, Armidale for Caroline and Elkie, that's quite interesting because is that near Kosciuszko or something? Alex said often there's a pile of rock on the mountain. Yeah, well, that's that scripture I showed you about where they slay the children in the valleys under the clefts of the rock, Alex. So they'll often do that. You'll find piles of rock. It's very common. Yeah, it's important to realize that even if Masonic halls go, these things just kind of move to a different location. That's what they tend to do. They tend to move into a different space. The biggest thing they do is get control of the councils. And then, of course, once they got control of the councils, they just push 5G towers and do shit like that. Now, I know one of the things I wanted to do is take controls of the councils. And, well, Avril, in terms of finding a scripture, I'll show you what to do, okay? It's actually really easy. Bible Gateway. This has got a King James for you, right here. BibleGateway.com, it's really good. So if you just do that, I'll even give you the link, Avril. And then you just type in the scripture you want to get. So let's say you want Psalm 23, Avril, type that in. And see you got here King James Version, and then if you feel like reading a satanic one or one that's been tampered with instead, then you can do that. just as a comment, so the King James Version, the only other one that actually is okay, but I just used the King James, is this one here, Geneva. But Geneva is actually harder to read, and the truth is King James is really just as good. So that's the only other one which has been proven to be relatively accurate. But yeah, so you got it here. So you can find these activations and incantations basically here. So, and like I said, once we start doing this, for those who do the work, we'll then start doing some stuff as well around helping you clear some other stuff that might get in the way. So working out a way to do that in some way, like we do have different programs or things we can do for anyone who wants to do that. But certainly if you get busy doing this, believe you me, you will get a blessing. That's how this works. Us to look after people who do their work. So just right now, just imagine this flower of life going into your third eye and just breathing in through your nose for 4, and then hold for a few and out. And I'm just going to finish this off by doing an activation for you, just to kind of let you go off. Just breathing that into your third eye. Just feel yourself, let this go into your heart, into your throat, and your third eye. I can feel that's where it's going for people. Opening your heart, opening your throat, opening your third eye, opening your power center. It is commanded, but the flower of life is used to activate each and every person and clearing the highest priority imprints and blockages from each and every person on all levels and all dimensions, in all realms and all incarnations now. Give each people whatever they need right now to be able to go out and do the work and really start to clean up their area, clean up their region, and really start to shift the energy to open this up for a reformation spiritually, a reformation in government with new, wise, just, strong leaders who do what's fair and right with technology and with the finances and with the health of the citizens of the community. And honest, conscious business owners in the community who use their money for right and do it for good and do it to help the people, for conscious health systems and conscious alternative health practitioners, where alternative health and health practitioners are encouraged, taken care of, and looked after. Activate each and every person to be given that same anointing, and this day, by the authority of Babaji, of Christ, and all the councils, galactic councils, and the Council of Nine, to delegate to people here to go out and do the exact work as I've told them today, to go out and expand the reach and ability to reach into the communities and to start to activate and open the portals and start to open the gates to bring a new beginning and a transformational shift. That what was meant for a time of great darkness in the dark age may be turned into a time of great good, glorious reformation and great prosperity. May this come out of this. And although no doubt there will be many parts that definitely will be affected and that from all of this, who knows what can be done? Let this bring a glorious reformation and glorious change, as much as it's within karmic law and divine purpose, in the regions and communities and the parts for each person and each and every one here now. Give them the strength to do the work and give them the courage and the confidence to do it and lead each person, because the law and the truth is written in the hearts and minds of each person on this webinar. All I'm doing today is doing the higher will of the Father and of the councils, and just activating and sharing what I know. And now councils, masters, Council of Nine, Brotherhood, Babaji, Christ, Order of Enoch, all those. It is for you to do. It is for you now, as I've done my part, to activate people and work with these people now and allow this work to take some fruit and glorious shifting as you activate the grids, the portals, the chakras and the areas, and transform the energy of these regions to bring blessing and to start to see peace, prosperity and safety upon planet Earth. Aham Brahmasmi Ta'asia Intadoi. Thanks and glory to God, to Christ, and to all those aligned with the Brotherhood and the councils. Amen. Okay, well, I'm sure one or two of you felt that one, because I certainly did. So thank you, everyone. And thank you for being here and listening to me and being willing to do this work. That's all I can say. Because I certainly don't like the idea of seeing a community in this country of everywhere being pretty much a microchipped World Health Organization run country. So thank you for doing this. And yes, Rob, you're a bit scared, but well, I like what Kaylin said. Kaylin's one of the ones on here. Kaylin made one of the most insightful comments. She goes, yes, I'm scared, but I'm more scared of what will happen if I don't do something. And I think that probably summarizes a very smart response, you know? That's where I'm at. I mean, getting up there and speaking this kind of stuff, I knew everyone would either think I'm the biggest clown or idiot on the face of the earth, or it's going to make a difference. But once upon a time, I was frightened what people think. Well, I'm very frightened about what will happen if I don't do my part and if nothing actually happens and if we don't do anything. That gets me nervous. Yeah, because I have no doubt that way of life and what we see. I don't particularly relish the idea of Australia, of seeing military planes and Chinese soldiers basically coming in on planes or whatever else. And I think all that stuff can happen if we don't do something about it. And whereas I do believe right now we're getting some momentum and we're getting started. So yes, fear can be a good thing if it motivates you to take action. That's my last comment for you all. Fear can be a fucking good thing if it motivates you to take action. So use that fear rather than to sit there panicking to actually do something. Helen, a huge thank you, and fellow reformer. Yep, well, thank you to everyone today, and have a good night, everyone. And I'll see you again later in this week. We'll get an update in the group. Just update us how you go. Make comments in the group. You know, if you once you've done it, let us know how you go. And yeah, look, at some stage in the next week or so, we'll get together again, and I'm gonna hopefully convince Aaron to share a bit more. So thanks, everyone.